Let's see. We are connecting. Hi.
Hi, how are
I
you?
am well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm trying to make sure I can be seen and read at
Yes.
the same time.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to let a couple of more folks join. We
Okay.
sent out all our messages that will be here. Um, so let's see
Oh, that's never happened before.
here. This is all new times, and we're just gonna, I'm here fidgeting as well, and I think everybody is okay with that. I do want to say hello to everyone here. I'm Sonia Smith Kang. I am president of MASC. We have been doing Instagram lives. This is now our fourth one, I believe. And it is our new reality. And I'm finding, with the exception of today, uh, has been, I was so nervous. I'm so nervous to meet you and excited. Maybe I'm going to call
Oh,
it excitement to
yes.
meet you.
It is.
But
Thank
really,
you. Thank
underneath,
you.
I was like, anyway, so I'm excited. We'll tell everybody all about you. I see folks still joining, and um, I just want to, share that I am Mescalero Apache by way of New
Mm,
Mexico. But right now, we're here in Los Angeles, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the occupied territory of the Gabrielino Tongva Nation land.
yep.
We are here to show respect for Indigenous peoples and recognize their enduring relationship to the land. We
Mhm.
recognize and honor the elders who have stewarded this land for generations. We acknowledge their history and that Indigenous peoples are still here, their land still occupied. We
Yeah.
acknowledge there has always been and always will be Indigenous peoples in the spaces we occupy. We will not suppress or forget this. In this
Mm,
acknowledgement process, we take the first steps on the long road toward reconciliation.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Very long.
yes. So
Yeah.
we want to welcome you um, today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I also want to say want to acknowledge the Chumash peoples of this land as well. A lot of people don't know that the Chumash occupied Leimert Park before it was Leimert Park.
Thank you
So,
for that.
like, yeah, and they're also a coastal people, and the Tonva actually occupied Leimert, where Loyola Marymount University is, my
Yes.
alma mater.
Uh-huh.
And so on that bluff, when they started building the School of Business, they found Tonva artifacts. So
Yes.
evidence is everywhere.
It sure is. And thank you for sharing that. And if you guys don't know already, this is Shonda Buchanan. She is I'm going to go ahead and just read part of her biography, and then you can share with us some information as well. She's the author of
Okay.
5 books, an award winning poet and educator
Mhm.
who was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, a daughter of mixed bloods, triracial and tri-ethnic African American, American Indian, and European descendant families who migrated from North Carolina and Virginia in the mid 1700s to 800s to southwestern Michigan. Black Indian, her memoir begins the saga of these migration stories of free people of color, communities exploring identity. There it is, there's the book, and ethnicity, landscape, and loss. And I think when I was preparing, it just seemed like it's at a time where your story of
Mhm.
resilience and survival are kind of happening in real life.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that in your work and in what's happening right now in our reality?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So at the beginning of the COVID um, journey, horror, I guess we could say, I started thinking about ways, that I could recreate my reality in opposition to that fear that, was kind of that I was succumbing to. And then it became, so I was writing poems of hope at the beginning, and then I jumped online and I was doing IG Live, and I said, I'm going to read from Octavia Butler's works, and, just all of these kinds of things to keep me occupied, right? Because I've been always writing about race and ethnicity and representation and womanhood, gender, domestic abuse, and so many things. And I said, okay, how can I engage with my art? How can I engage with my art? And of course, my book, my two books, I have to say, Who's Afraid of Black Indians is kind of one of the first ways that I was, trying to explore identity and ethnicity and identity and biraciality and triraciality. And then the same with Black Indian, I was trying to figure out what did it mean for me to be someone who came from a family where they said, you are, my mom would say you are Indian, you are French and German, and you are a little bit of Black. And it was always the sense of like, why am I a little bit of Black, mama? What is that about? And so, that became this whole discussion of colorism, in my book. So as COVID kind of grew, and then we saw the numbers of African Americans becoming more prevalent in the depths of COVID. And then it jumped on, to reservations. And suddenly it's like, oh, and here is racism again, and here is how it manifests in our health. And here is how it manifests in our imagination and our psyche. So how can I work on something, and how can I write in a way that is representational, but also gets at the root, of these kinds of things. So yes, to answer your question in a long way, I am finding, the similarities with regards to how artists are continually confronting injustice in society, and how I try to confront that in my writing. And then suddenly you have all these disparities, rising from what we already knew was there, but then the skin is peeling back like onion layers, right? And it's like, oh, there are, more women of color dying from domestic dispute now. There are, we already knew that American Indian women are the most murdered women in this country, but now it's happening on a greater scale because you can't run, you have to stay in this house, and so many disparities. So I'm trying to figure out how to write that.
Yes. Do you have any, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but is there any of your writing that you can or share with us a passage that we can start as well? I'd love to hear, and I know our audience would as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to start with a section in my book where I'm just kind of talking a little bit about where's the proof? People are always asking me or assuming like you're just, a Black woman in America. But then there's that question of what are you mixed with, right? So that's a question I grew up with all my life. So I'll start with that. Where's the proof? I am constantly asked, what are you? Classmates have fingered my good Indian hair, pointed at my toffee-hued skin. You're not really Black. One former friend told me this years ago when I was 19 or 20, comparing my slender nose and skin tone to her beautiful thick features and rich kola nut skin. I knew I was not fully Black, but for her to say it set me apart from the Black race, the Black fight, the struggle of my Black people. I love my Blackness, my Africanness, my connection to Africa. I love the dopeness of our culture, our music, our artistic expression, and scientific inventions. Our culture could be appropriated but never owned. I love and appreciate my American Indian culture in the same way. The dancing and drumming fills me with a sense of belonging I feel blessed, not cursed, to have shared. But my Aunt Catherine and her manual kin are from the old school light skin crew. They are the wooden splinters of Racial Integrity Act. The darker the berry for them didn't make the juice sweeter. Their minds stuck in that tragic mulatto trope. Their light skin did make them better than us, than me, who got my darkness from my father's side. But if you asked any of them how and why, they couldn't explain it. It's equally strange and hurtful to hear some full-blooded Indians make jokes about us mixed bloods. What's wrong with you? You think you know what it means to be Indian? Maybe I don't, but I know my history.
Listen, I wasn't ready. I was not ready.
Popped in there with that one. That's on page 100.
Ooh, listen, let me collect
You right? Oh,
myself.
you're crying. Look,
Oh,
have you had the same kinds of questions? Have you had the same?
yes. I think what oh, yes, I think anybody who is on this with us, the folks that are on, I see Heart and Soul is saying same. We it was definitely challenging growing up. If I didn't share before, my father's African American, my mom is Mexican, and you know,
Wow.
I think I struggled with identity for how old am I? So, you know, up till like till today. And
Yep.
so to hear, I think coupled with what is going on in you know with our Black Lives Matters and the anti-blackness, and to
Yeah.
hear the beautiful words that you just shared about, you know,
Yeah.
I think that is what we need to hold on to, and that is what gives us strength. And if no other reason to grab your book, but to say, you know, this is the beauty of blackness,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it just hit. It hit.
Yeah. It's always a discussion, I mean, kind of a negotiation of racial space within race, you know, and
Correct.
it's how, how can I assure all my ethnicities that I'm on everybody, that I'm not, I was going to say I'm on everyone's side, but that's not the way I want to say it. That I am standing up for my ancestors. That's what I want to say, you know, and I'm standing up for who I am as a woman who grew up with the sense of knowing I was mixed race, but then also at the same time, in society relegated to a black woman status. So I suffered black woman issues, and we still suffer, you know, black people's issues, right? And then at the same time, there's that sense of uh, my identity helping to shape and form who I am as a woman, as a Black Indian woman, as a mixed race woman in America, right? And it also forms my response to racism and to injustice and to ignorance, you know, where people are like, so what are you? And it's like, okay, well, let me just take you back 10,000 years. Let me take you back 13 generations. You
Yes.
know, let's look at the history.
Yes, and I see folks are responding to I stand
Yeah.
for all my parts, and I think that is a wonderful way.
Yes.
I in explaining that, especially to children or to our, you know, family members when asked, you know, what are you? But then it's always followed by, what do you feel more of?
Yes. Yes. That's so true.
and
It's like,
and I've never been able to understand, you know, and you had the experiences from what I'm hearing of having a the phenotype more of an black, whereas
yeah.
I kind of had took on more of the Latino, and was always questioned about my blackness.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I
Wow.
was not black enough nor Mexican enough. So
Yeah.
it was a constant struggle, I think, for myself. And
Yeah.
but you learned about your mixed ancestry early on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did
It
that?
was oral history.
It was
It was
through
oral
oral
narrative.
history,
Oh,
and that
in
was
my
through.
family.
Uh-huh. How old would you say?
That's, oh my gosh. I think in the book I say something about when I was maybe 6 or 7. There's a section in here where I'm scratching my mom's head because that's when she was like most like her guard was all down, right? And I'm scratching her head and I'm like, Mama, what are we? And you know, she's like, I think we're Blackfoot. I think, you know, but you got some Indian in you and some black and some white. And as a kid, I, you know, maybe it was 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that. And in the book, I say, okay, I was black and Indian. I could tell my friends that, but I couldn't tell them I was white. They wouldn't see that I was white, and I'd be called a liar, and then I'd be persecuted, and so all these like things going through my child mind, was I don't look white. I'm not. I don't identify as white. Where are the white people at my family reunions? I don't see any. I'm just gonna say black and Indian. Like that's what I'm gonna say. That's safer. It's safer for a kid. And as an adult, I guess I'm still rectifying the white part. When I took my DNA, um, did my DNA before the book came out several years ago. The book came out last year, 2019. So I must have done my DNA in 2018. And I couldn't believe that I had over 30% European. I was like, what? Where are these Scottish, Irish, blonde, blue? Where are these people? Or, and I would be walking down the street floor because none of them claimed me. None of them showed up. And I wrote a little section in the book. I can read a little bit.
Please.
Can I read a little bit of when I
Absolutely.
became race? So I do say the N word in a part. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. So this is when I became aware of race. Okay, I'm going to start here. I had a crush on Nigel since kindergarten, but he never looked at me. Only like the white girls and Yvonne Gibson, who was light, bright, pretty. The slightly darker skinned black girls collectively knew we didn't stand a chance with him. One day, in my Curious George treks around the east side, I turned down a well-kept street I had never been on. The houses were majestic to my eyes, brick and wood with manicured lawns and expertly shaped hedges. It was as if the new and improved version of my street had been magically dropped into our community, like Dorothy's house in The Wizard of Oz. My imagination knew no bounds. And I'm gonna pause here just to skip over and to say that the kid I had a crush on, Nigel, his white mother came out of the house with him, and the black father got in the car and drove off. So I'm gonna skip over to my realization. Nigel was white. My new knowledge gave me a terribly sweet sense of power. I had something over him. I just didn't know what it was really. The next day in class, I looked at him, unafraid, hopelessly enamored, but knowing he would never give me the time of day. I started humming a song in my head as I added up my math problems and practiced my long O's and S's and D's. D's were my favorite, and N's too, as in nigger. And I hummed until the bell rang for recess and sang a little bit of it on the playground to the shock of my schoolmates. Hum, 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 Nigel is a nigger. It had such a swell ring to it. The alliteration of the N thrilled me. I sang it in my head after we climbed off the bus at the end of the day. It burst from my mouth. Nigel is a nigger. His dad is black and his mom is white. Nigel is a nigger. He was hanging back with his friends and couldn't hear me, so it didn't matter. I sang, skipping along East Main Street toward my street, Southworth Terrace. I was giddy in my newfound knowledge that the boy I had a crush on, who ignored me, was not better than me. He was not better than any of us. I never stopped to think that it was none of my business, that maybe he was afraid, embarrassed, that his desire to keep quiet about it was for the purposes of protecting himself. I felt somehow betrayed that I got nothing as a biracial girl and he seemed to get everything. Maybe because I knew his family had money and mine didn't. He was always clean, in new looking clothes and good lunches, and I was not. Maybe I just desperately wanted him to like me back. Maybe I was possessed, but I could not for the life of me shut up. Someone must have told him about my serenade. Nigel's coming, someone yelled. I saw a scuffle and a sea of kids parted like, the Red Sea. And he darted out toward me. I took off. I was scared shitless, laughing out of sheer terror of what he was going to do when he caught me. I was the fastest runner in my age group and on my block, but Nigel was faster. I'ma kill you. You better shut up, Shonda. He chased me. ran me down like the dog I was. For some reason, I couldn't keep the words from coming out of my mouth. Nigel is a He caught my arm and threw me down on my back, straddled my stomach, and raised his hand. He'd been trained not to hit girls. He hesitated until I laughed like the dolt I was, as he slapped me hard, and then for good measure, he spit in my face. I didn't care. I laughed like a big dummy. Kids are cruel. I was cruel, and he was cruel too. But at that moment, calling him the worst insult I could think of was instinct. And later, years and years later, I realized that maybe he hated his black-white self a little too, more than he hated me. Maybe as much as I disliked myself for not knowing what or who we were, because we didn't look Africa black. Our skin tone incriminated us. Our high cheekbones and soft, springy hair set us apart. But we didn't know who we were. I was light brown. My sisters and brothers were mostly high yellow, and my mother was as translucent as a star. Me and Nigel weren't what our history books termed niggers, blacks in a cotton field, but somehow we were tainted with the heritage of the word. My mother hadn't really taught me to be proud of our blackness. The multiracial and Indian part, yes, but being proud of my blackness, that I had to learn.
Thank you.
That's a hard story. That was a hard story to admit to, you know, because as kids, thank you. I see some good comments here.
Yes.
You know, as kids, there's the sense that you just want to survive. You know, you just want people to like you. You know, you want the boy you have a crush on to like you back, right? And as I was thinking about how colorization played a role in my family and in my upbringing, I said, you know, this is the scene that you have to write. Like, you have to fess up and be honest that you were a cruel person, but it was something that was intrinsic in my family and something that had come from society into my family and that came into me as a child. Yeah, like I say, I must have been possessed. So,
So, uh,
that's okay.
folks are just blown away by that and your honesty. And so you've been doing a lot of the research. Is there still research left?
Yes.
Are you still, what do you, can you take us a little bit in the time we have left with you, the, you know, the, maybe a part of the journey and you know, what we can take away and what we can learn from that?
So, I guess I'll say in the journey of admitting that I had been a child who said an incredibly mean and racist and um, thing to another child because of my own jealousy, because of my own ignorance, is a thing that I wanted to write because I want white people and I want other people to say, I'm going to admit to this moment and I'm going to move, if I can, they should move into a space where I admit when I was wrong, when I was a racist, when I was doing something that I didn't even know was racist, and then try to grow from that moment. Um, you know, to the best of our ability. And then for colorization, right? When I worked at Hampton University, I worked there for 13 years. I was going to give myself an extra 5 at Hampton University. But my darker skinned students would come to me and it broke my heart. And they would say, we'd be writing a paper, you know, on some social ill, you know, that has impacted you. And my darker skinned girls would come to me and they'd say, I want to talk about colorization because I keep getting these kinds of remarks here on campus. You're pretty for a dark skinned girl. Or, you know, I don't want to marry a dark skinned girl, but I'll have relations with you. And it's like, I just like, I couldn't believe it. How do you tell one of, I'm not dark skinned. I don't have the story of the dark skinned black woman in America. That's not my story to tell. But how do you even begin to help a student um, think about or give themselves value um, outside of what society has perpetuated in their life and in the lives of people who say such hurtful things in college, you know? Um, so there is more research, there is more writing to be done, right? I am now working on a book about my African ancestors, and I want to find them. You know, I'm on my African ancestors trail, and I do want to find the white folks, and I want to, get on their trail, and, the Scottish. And am I going back to Scotland just to find them and shock them and say, "Hey, cousin," but it's a part of my life's work. My identity will always be Black Indian. My identity, the ceremonies that I practice, they're always African, American Indian, ceremonies and tradition and culture. Um, so yes, there's more research and there's more work to be done. How can we suss it out? The history of the mixed blood in this country is so fraught with peril and at the same time um, beautiful. uh, um, there are so many communities that have come together and united against the oppressor, or united against colonization, or American Indian tribes taking in blacks, and black slaves, or saving them, or stealing them from plantations when they saw that they were, they were in chattel slavery, being treated like that. There's so many moments of blacks and Indians coming together in this country after the 1812 French Indian War, when the American Indian male population had been depleted. Some of the American Indian women bought blacks as slaves to marry them and have children, right? My gosh, the Buffalo Soldiers who initially went out to hunt, American Indians in the Civil War, some of them stayed and married and had children with American Indian wars. William Loren Katz writes about that in a couple of his books. William Loren Katz is probably, he's a white man, and I know some people don't like the fact that a white man wrote the first book called Black Indian, A Hidden Heritage, and they have some problems with his work too. But I have to say, when that book was published in 1986, it was a groundbreaking book.
Hmm.
But now we have the responsibility and which is why I wrote, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I wrote Black Indian, because we have a responsibility to contribute to the narrative and to contribute to that scholarship and to write our own stories.
I love that. For those that are listening, and for how can they start on that? You talked about the oral history, but how does one move from an oral point to now let's kind of dig a little deeper and find out if I got folks
Mm.
in
Yeah.
Ireland, or how can they make a first step in their
Yeah.
identity journey?
So I'm actually publishing I think it's 7 steps. I was going to say 5 steps, but how to find your ancestors, or how to do your research.
That's
Step one, because I keep getting that question. I've lectured all around the world, actually. I've been in Greece and Malaysia talking about being Black Indian, and, across the country at universities. And they always ask me, how do I do my research? How do I find my ancestors? One, you interview the oldest people in your family. That's, you whoever, if they're 70 or 80 or 90. Unfortunately, we've got COVID, who have COVID has been just eradicating our elder population.
mm,
But you have to interview those people. You have to ask them everything they know all their first memories, you know, when they married, the first time they had a child, where they lived, et cetera, et
Okay.
cetera. And then who do they remember? Like who are the oldest people that they remember? What are their names? Where were they born? Um, Secondly, I would say definitely, you know, get on ancestry.com. Ancestry.com is owned by the Mormons. Uh, Ancestry, so the Church of the Latter-day Saints own ancestry.com and familysearch.org, but it's odd because they're sometimes both of those websites will have different kinds of information about the same family. So that's a chance to compare and contrast names and dates and locations of your people. The other piece of information I would say is to, if you can take a trip, if you can take a journey to the place or the township or the city where your people were born, if it's a great grandfather or a grandfather, go to the Hall of Records. Once you have hopefully maybe a name, maybe you have the address where they lived, go to the Hall of Records and copy all of that. Copy, you know, the how much land they owned,
Wow.
where did they own that land? Because from there you can see who they bought the land from, which could be another ancestor. It could be a neighbor next door. It could be a cousin. You have no idea, right? So these are threads that you're pulling together in your research. And it's interesting, one of the things that I found with doing this research is that one of my first predecessors, her name was Mary Roberts, and she owned 400 acres of land, which she subsequently sold off to her sons. And so I'm like, wow, like this is, you know, this is huge because we don't think of ourselves as being landowners, as
Right.
people of color
Right.
in this country, right? And I also discovered if you owned land as a free person of color, then you could vote in the 1700s. And that's something that they eradicated, something that was, you know, just kind of erased.
Hmm. Well, I see my brother on here, so I hope he's taking notes, and I need him to get started because he is our he would be able to find some of those records. I know he can. Is there in the last minute or so, is there a piece that you can send us off on? And but before that, as you're thinking
Yeah.
about which piece to share, can you let us and folks know your book is out now? Your books are out now, but where can
Yes.
they find you?
So you can find me at my website, which is shondabuchanan.com. You can buy my book on Amazon, of course, as you know, all books are on Amazon, but also you can go to Wayne State University Press. They are a fantastic independent press, and my book is for sale on that website as well. And then also, I wanted to say that I am giving away digital copies of Who's Afraid of Black Indians. If you buy Black Indian, today is Thursday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if they buy Black Indian, my memoir, then I will email them a digital copy of Who's Afraid of Black Indians. This is normally $15.
That's amazing.
And yeah, and it's on my website as well.
Okay.
But I want people to have this too. So, and then again, if they wanted an actual copy of it, I actually have about 20 hard copies. So if they want a hard copy, they can email me, and I would. But that one costs because I have to pay for shipping and all that good stuff.
Absolutely, I hear you. Heart and Soul is asking if the book is available in audio format.
Oh, I just completed the audiobook for Who's Afraid of Black Indians, but I did not do the audiobook for Black Indian as of yet. We're still in negotiations
Okay.
for that one.
And then the steps that when should folks expect that? And when I say folks, I mean me. When when should I expect your list?
So the audiobook, I'm hoping that this audiobook, it's with Ubuntu Audio, and I'm hoping that this book will be released hopefully mid-July.
No, the steps to finding your ancestry and
Oh,
yes. Is that
oh,
somewhere they
oh,
can find, or is that coming soon?
that will be on my website hopefully within the next week.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Brother, do you hear?
yeah,
Remind me, 1 week we're
yeah,
going on the site.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, can I
Yes,
also say
please.
I'm actually going to do a 1 hour, maybe a 1 hour, hour and a half seminar on how to do ancestry. How I might call it how to find your Black Indian ancestors, and just basically, for an hour, really just talk about all of the resources, talk about my journey as a researcher, and then take questions. And if anyone wants to, to maybe talk with me later or get any consulting, then I can do that as well. But I'll likely charge, I don't know, a nominal fee or something like that, just for the 1 hour session. But and I probably will do that in July too.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to get that information and share that on our site. I know
I
folks
would be
will,
grateful.
um, are gonna, I can already tell they're gonna want to, what'd she say?
Yeah.
Where's she gonna be? So we will have that up on our site,
Okay.
on MASC and our social media site. And so let's see, there was that. Oh, so did you find something to send us off on?
I did. This will be a short poem from this book, Who's Afraid of Black Indians, and it's called Country. Scent of bow-legged women knocks softly on my doorstep in cotton dresses, shifting from side to side just below the knee. Touch memories buried in Pullman, Michigan heat. Bow-legged women stand in my country summertime, ankles carrying my puberty across the wheat river, thick with the sauce of the wind. Jackrabbits scatter, shatter, shaken out of their dreams. Prayer is in the meadow, as my mama runs with the rabbits, air ripping her laughter into tears.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. I am so grateful for you having me on this beautiful Instagram live moment. I'm just grateful, and I can't wait to continue on with this discussion. Maybe we'll be on a panel, or we can write a panel idea or something like that and be on a panel.
You don't even know, the moment I got out, the wheels were already turning, and I know our team will definitely have, you'll be seeing us, is what we're saying. We're gonna go on tour. I think that's just what it's gonna be. Thank you so
I
much for
love
your time, your
it.
commitment, and your sharing of your journey. Uh, I hope everybody stays tuned and follows her,
Yeah.
um, and there are folks sharing some beautiful poems that are there too. So we are recording this. This is going to go up soon, and we'll be able to share all that. Once again, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you.